on the way to this all-knowing and being in the vortex and being in tune with yourself, on the way there's these bumps along the road, these challenges, and what is the best way to deal with those around you that insist on complaining or judging or doing these things that you don't really want to focus on, but they're being thrust in you, and you know that if you were in the vortex, it wouldn't be coming at you, but you're not yet in the vortex. Do you just endure it? Do you say, yes, okay, because you don't want to, because if you say, I don't want to listen to that right now, then they think you're rude or you don't care.
The first thing that happens is an awareness. Esther had a conversation on the telephone with someone recently who was really wanting to get her point of view across to Esther. And Esther had a different point of view. And as Esther listened, Esther realized that with every word that Esther uttered, it just got bigger. There was no way this conversation was going to come to a conclusion that was going to please anybody. And so Esther is looking at Jerry and going, what do I do? And Jerry can't hear the other end of it, so he doesn't really know what's going on. And we said to Esther, hang up the phone. Hang up the phone. In other words, do anything you can do to stop this conversation. Not because the other person is wrong and you are right, but that this is not going in the direction that is going to be pleasing. And Esther couldn't do it. She handed the phone to Jerry, and he didn't know what to do with it, and he hung it up. Because he didn't know where it was at. So what we're getting at here is withdrawal from unwanted. Now, people worry about that because they feel that they must defend themselves. But think about the exact words that we are using. There is this vortex that you are allowing or resisting. And if you're allowing it, it's the path of least resistance. So the path of least resistance is whatever it takes not to confront, you see. We really mean that when we say bring back the fist. Now, there are a lot of people even in this room that say, but come on, don't we need to stand up for ourselves? Won't we be a doormat? And we want you to understand that if you're all outside the vortex and inside the vortex is off the table of discussion and you want to win, then you better get big and strong and you better be able to beat them all up. And that's the game you play in. Let's call it the out of the vortex game, where brute force and good debate is really where it's at. But one who's in alignment is millions of times more powerful than those who are not. So if you make the decision that you want to connect with your true power, that you want to connect with who you really are, and further, you can't be joyful unless you do that, then it makes you willing to just let those things go by the wayside while you collect yourself inside the vortex. There are so many people who will convince you that you owe them an explanation. You owe them an explanation. But they don't just mean that. They mean you owe me the explanation that I want to hear. That's what and I'm not going to let you go until you say what I want to hear from you. And so what are your options? In other words, do you want to deny who you are? And this is really a big issue. It's the reason it runs so deep within so many of you, because the day you were born, you had a guidance system that people on the planet around you, mostly outside the vortex already, were saying to you, in order for me to feel good, you need to do these things. And so right away, almost all children look to their parents and teachers, and when they're smiling, then that's good, and when they're frowning, then that's bad. In other words, and they give up their own relationship to their own vortex by letting themselves try to please this one and this one and this one and this one. But then the longer you live, the more you realize that they're all fickle and they all want different things from you, and it just drives you crazy. In other words, the longer you live, the more you realize that something is missing if you're not in alignment with who you are. So we're just suggesting in as strong a way as we can that when you finally get it, that you're not going to feel good unless you're in alignment with who you are. But we know it's a big price to pay. I have to pay the price of joy in order to find my power. That's really what we're talking about. You have to pay the price of consistent joy and happiness and appreciation and alignment in order to really come into your true power. When you are in your true power, then it's not difficult for your life to go well for you, because first of all, law of attraction's not matching you up with things that don't match it. And in your desire to teach, and that's what happens to so many of you, you're a teacher, and so students come. And when students come, lots of teaching goes on. In other words, we don't know, in the conversation that we were just offering about Esther hanging up, we would not begin to say that the other person was wrong, or that the benefit of the whole thing was all Esther's doing. In other words, we so want everyone to understand that when there is a problem that is formulating, there is a solution that is formulating too. And what makes you want to sort of break away from those that are still beating the drum of the problem is that you're ready to move on to the solution, and often they're not. And you just can't move on to the solution while you're beating the drum of the problem. You have to let it go. Helpful?
Very. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.